Hello, everyone. Today we are recording from the Adidas offices in Amsterdam with my hosts here and my podcast, Katherine Roseveare, General Counsel, Global Functions, Global Operations, and Legal Solutions here at Adidas, and Alex Herrity, the Director of Legal Solutions. Thanks so much for having me in your beautiful offices, which are also very cool. We're in this room right now that is a replica of the stadium locker room. Is that right, Catherine?
That's right. The Ajax Stadium, which is across the road. Very proud sponsors.
Yeah. And so this is very special to be here today. And thank you guys for letting us record a podcast while I'm visiting.
No problem.
Great to have you. Yeah.
Welcome to your three-stripe life. It starts today, Mary.
This is a great trip because I had an excuse not to wear any heels.
Yeah.
But still the pearls, Mary.
But of course,
Still the pearls.
Let's get it out of the way. It is Adidas, right? Because in the US, everyone says Adidas.
You can say both as long as you buy the shoes. The Europeans tend to say Adidas.
Yeah.
And in the US, it tends to say Adidas, but we really don't mind.
It's funny though, depending on who you're speaking to, sometimes I'll refer to Adidas to someone in the UK and they'll, okay, and then they, oh, do you mean Adidas? It really is what you've grown up on, maybe what TV shows you watched as a kid, all kind of stuff. But yeah, we're not too fussy, I don't think.
Yeah. And some people think it was all day I dream about sport.
Or soccer is what I heard growing up.
Well, that would be American.
Yeah.
But it's actually short for Adolf Dassler. So Adi Dassler is the founder of Adidas, who you will take a picture of you next to him in reception, Mary, when you leave. So he was the founder. So that's how it became Adidas.
So I don't have your guys' bio. I thought maybe we could start with a little bit of background. Tell me about your role here, and then perhaps the very short version of path you took to get here. Well, we start with you, Catherine.
Sure. I've been at Adidas now for 18 years, I think. But before that, I used to work at Umbro as General Counsel. Then I was in private practice at Adelshaw Goddard, but actually did secondments out to Adidas UK, actually, which gave me my taste in this industry. And I've done various things during my tenure here. But I look after a whole bunch of things, functions, operations, so making and moving products, the internal sort of corporate functions, but then also a very special team, which is the legal solutions team. And I have joined here today by a member of that team, which is Alex.
Yeah. So I guess quickly, my background as well is, I think I've been working at Adi now since 2012. So yeah, 10 plus years. 11. And I started off as a legal counsel here, working in the UK team. So the local business unit based in the market, so selling the product directly to consumers. And then I had various little secondments to different areas, a bit of time in private practice as well, but ultimately ended up working in the HQ over in Germany. And that's where I initially slotted under Catherine's wing in one of her many teams. And that was just around the time that sort of operations was taking off in the corporate. So 5-6 years ago, maybe even longer now. And Katherine was talking about, we should do this. We need to do more of this, legal tech, legal operations. And I had a little bit of a background in making some of my own little solutions, a few legal tech things that I've done. I was interested in learning how to code and things like that. So I think Katherine and I were chatting about it and you said, do you want to stop doing the day work of legal work? And do you want to try this new thing? And yeah, we decided to go for it. That's when the kind of team in earnest started. There's a few colleagues who come from legacy teams that were doing similar things, but that's when we built our legal operations team, but we called it solutions because we want to be solutions orientated and operations means a different thing in our business as well. So it makes sense for us.
So if you keep going on about something long enough, somebody eventually turns around and says, just go and sort it out, which is exactly what happened. There's lots of people in the team who are very enthusiastic about technology, but we needed to bring it under one roof in solutions because when you have a global team, you really can't have lots of different technology portfolios across the world. And actually that was part of our IT philosophy, our tech philosophy, as well as the company as a whole. So we knew we had to bring it under one roof. And actually, you don't need a whole different technology portfolio if you have one or two people in a market. You may as well have something for the whole function. Managing technology as well is not that easy. So when we started solutions, we knew technology was going to be number one, but we knew it couldn't just be technology. So we really knew we had to change a culture, change a mindset. And that's really how we try and run solutions in this team. We don't have to educate people. Most of the time, we try to manage expectations. We've had such a growth over the last 4 or 5 years of people wanting to change and do things more efficiently.
Fantastic. So in the beginning, was it that way, or was it a little bit of an uphill battle trying to get traction? And
it was a mixture, really, depending on what it was. In fact, we started at Clock.
I remember this.
Yeah.
Yes. After we said, Catherine, just go and sort it out. I was like, how on earth? No, we actually came to Vegas in 2018, I think.
Okay. I remember seeing you in the hall and you said, we just did it. We just sat down and banged out the plan for the next few years.
So we came to Clock and actually we took quite a few of us. Yeah. We brought Bill. We'll go through the team in a second, but we took a few members of the legal team from the US, different parts of it. So somebody from the patents team, from the commercial team. Alex came because he had an interest in legal technology. And we said, let's go completely open-minded, go with a whole bunch of questions, figure out what everybody else is doing, and then figure out what we need. So we just went crazy for 4 days, not on the gambling tables, but in the rooms. And we just were like sponges. We just soaking everything up. And then we went away to think about what do we actually need and how are we going to pull this together. And then we went ahead with a recommendation to the general counsel at the time, said, I think this is how we start. So we started off with a very basic 3-year plan. It was really simple. First year was, what do we have?
Yeah.
It took us quite a long time to figure that out.
Yeah.
What do we need? And what are the big ticket items we need to clean up? And then what's the rest of the roadmap? And then organically just grew over time. So we now have 3 pillars. Maybe Alex, you want to talk about the 3 pillars of solutions?
Yeah, I'm trying to think, oh my God, what's super. Yeah, and I guess just quickly before that, to your point around, did this happen? People were making requests. I think that's one of the big things. One of the big themes is we don't have to go to people so often as people coming to us now. Or even those conversations that I think every business has where you're just like, we'll just park it with that team for now because they're not going to bite, or we know that person isn't really. I just don't think we have as many of those or even any of those anymore. It's people are really raising the flag themselves, and it's a different challenge because obviously you need to manage expectations. But yeah, initially it was finding those friendly faces and then, trying to do what we could. But now it's completely different.
Yeah, we take the philosophy from how we sell product, actually. You have influencers, you have first adopters, and then it goes to mass market. And then it's about maintenance of the product. So we really try and latch onto the enthusiasm of those people in the team who are interested about making change. And then other people, what are they doing? You get people are recognizing what's happening and seeing the efficiencies in the team. And then we just try and help spark that enthusiasm and do some of the background, making the magic happen behind the scenes. That's really how we see it.
You know your team is successful when you get to that point where people start knocking on your door. And I remember going through that as well, where we were knocking on doors and teams were saying, oh, no, thank you. We're good. Go talk to somebody else. And until you found the teams and the people that were excited to work with you, and then you got traction and you showed success. And then over time, then you get so many requests that the question begins, how do I prioritize out of all these things that people want me to do?
Yeah, we recently had an implementation for a new tool. And I think after the first training session or the first onboarding, 2 people independently from separate teams messaged me saying, hey, would I be able to get access to the sandbox? I've got a few ideas. I was like, what's going on? This is so from left field now, but it's super exciting, right? I think that goes back to the mantra that the best ideas for a lot of the use cases are within the legal teams themselves, and getting that culture shift to where they can then offer them up by themselves. That's really where the goal is going to be, because legal operations, you can only do so much. And the less you're practicing day to day, the slightly more removed you do get over time. So we try to kind of refresh that, but you do. I think we're pretty open to say, we're relying on you to come up with cool ideas and max out the product and kind of really come with it. We can lay the foundations, but we're already seeing that people are just, I want to try this. And if you can give them a friendly place to do it, that's really cool as well.
Yeah, trying to find the common denominators.
Yeah, without going too crazy. I guess that's the thing. Always iterations need to happen in a sensible and semi-controlled way, but you also don't want to stifle creativity.
We're very much a creative business. It's just what we do day in, day out. And I would say lawyers are definitely creators too, particularly here. If you don't like creating, don't come to adidas. Because we want that mindset. We want that. People who want to make change. We want to work with other people in the business who are very creative. You can't be in a fashion sports business without being creative. And we're really setting our own agenda. We're trying to respond to the needs of the team. We don't sit here and say, the legal team needs this. No, we are responsive to what the legal team needs, and we try and do it in collaboration with them. And we always say that we have, across the whole of the global legal team, everybody's part of solutions. It's not us. And we're a team of 6 now. It's myself. It's Alex based in the UK. We've got Bill based over in the US. We've got Andreas and Ellie based in Germany. And we have Maripath who's based here in Amsterdam as well. And we started off with being allocated to very specific areas, but now we just try and make sure the whole team has much more transparency on different parts of legal, so we can cross-fertilize ideas, we can have development within the team. But then also we have all those people who are out in the legal team doing this day in, day out, who are really interested in the topic. So we always want to make them feel as though they're those honorary members of solutions. So we have these 3 principles: technology, efficiency, and engagement. Technology comes first because we have the big portfolio that we have to maintain. Efficiency is really about how do we make legal as efficient as possible. That's mainly about spending the budgets in the right way, and processes. And the last one is engagement. Knowledge management, making the legal team feel as one community through SharePoint, through trainings, through whatever, but just having that feeling of connection. We think with those 3 things, then you start to change culture, and then you start to change the way that we do things.
And was the culture, the mindset, the creativity, the wanting to change, it sounds like you really have that now, but is that something your team had to consciously try to put on the rest of the department? You mentioned, 300 people around the globe in legal?
Yeah. Global legal is not just legal, like other functions might know. We actually have social environmental affairs, we have government affairs, we have protection, physical security, people security, but we all have that red thread that goes across all the different teams, which is about enabling and protecting what the business needs to do. So we know we have to cater for all of their needs, and they don't have to interact with each other. So we have a very wide portfolio of technology, for example, that they need, but you have to make sure people feel connected. So it's either through technology or it's through initiatives that we do as part of the legal function that creates that sense of community. But yeah, we don't sit here and set the agenda to say this year the culture will be X. We're just trying to reflect the team. Really.
Yeah, I think it was a mixture of trying to harness what was already there and then catalyze the rest. And yeah, but that's most of again, I think I've said a few times before, people talk about lawyers being risk averse and all those kind of things, which there's some things that are true about that, but they're certainly not out of ideas. That's always, legal just want to do it the old way and they've got no ideas. Plenty of time, I think they've got tons of ideas, but they usually fall at probably the first hurdle, which is, I'd love to do this thing and then I will just do them tech here. Oh, it's not there. And you just stop straight away because you've got such a busy day. But I think we were there to be saying, ask some of that to us. We'll work together. We can take some of the heavy lifting. We'll have conversations. Big corporate, you need to have conversations with IT, InfoSec, privacy, all these things on tech, especially. Yeah. We can do some of that heavy lifting for you. We can be your guide through some of those processes, which I think are just a little bit opaque to lawyers a lot of the time because you don't do a lot of this and you expect things to work in a certain way and they don't. So you just get discouraged. So I think we were there to just bang the drum, extract those ideas and set those people off who wanted to do stuff, get them going. And then, just slowly raise the bar for everybody else. And we've definitely seen the sort of the fruit of our labors on that.
Yeah. We had a year of play when we started to use Office 365 differently and we started to use Power Automate. We were just learning as we were going. We just went, let's go, try anything. We don't care what it is. Just try whether it's something really, really small. We don't have it. Sometimes it's not just about doing the big implementations of systems. We introduced an Aqua, big, chunky IP management system. And then we went, okay, let's go to the complete opposite of that. This is something you can do in your daily life. Learn how to use Microsoft Forms. Is that going to change the way you do things? Use a functional inbox. And this changes the way that people actually provide their legal services. You have to be more collegiate. You have to really think about how you have been doing things and what do you want to change. So I think that was also a turning point. This year of play where people just really sat down and thought, how are we doing this?
So I'm just going back a little bit because I think a lot of folks who want to put this in place struggle with trying to get the headcount, trying to get the budget. But I think what's interesting about the way you came up with the full-on plan and you pitched the idea, but it doesn't sound like you asked for headcount initially because you took someone who was existing in the department.
That's right. We already had a contract management team to manage our global contract system. So we already had 2 people in the team. And there's a few other people in the team who were very interested in it, would try to drive these initiatives. Yeah. So we adopted people along the way. And then I managed to get Alex on board. And then as we were rolling out Tracker to different locations, we knew that's all we could ask for a headcount to support some of that. And then it's sort of grown from there.
Proving it through people dabbling on the side. Question for you, Alex, that I get all the time is, I'm a practicing lawyer. I really want to get into legal ops. Mary, how do I apply? What do I do? And I said, you're at a big company already. Just go do it. There's so many projects and initiatives and things that could be better if you just start doing things and start showing impact and then eventually saying, you know, I'm really interested in this. Could this be something that could be a role here? Or if you're going to leave, then at least you could say, I've done it, right? I just have the title. So is that essentially what happened for you?
Yeah, essentially that was it. It was the day-to-day job. And I always joke that it's born out of my own laziness, that there was a certain task that I just hate doing this all the time. And that was what drove, was it necessity is the mother of invention, all that sort of stuff. It was really necessary for me not to do that piece of work anymore. And that was it. Yeah, I started to play around with something because I wanted that end result, probably for me more than anything, being totally selfish. But it was, but it was going to drive a business result. And it got some traction. And
a very supportive boss, Linda is really supportive and really into driving efficiencies in technology.
Yeah, that was definitely the case.
Gave you the space to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it was definitely that. I think it would probably have been wrong to just go completely off grid myself because it was on a sensitive topic and we're working on something that's business related. So definitely worked with him to just say, is this something cool that we can do? And having that support is great. But if you don't have an ops function or any kind of background like that, you do have to put in the hard yards a little bit yourself. So it was incrementally an extra hour here or watching a YouTube video over lunch whilst, how do I write this little bit of code? And But the materials that are out there are crazy. I'm sure you've gone even bigger in the last 5 years because there's so much stuff there. But definitely found myself down this sort of dark avenues of forums and things like that, trying to figure out, asking some grand wizard somewhere, how do we do this? And summon some code for you. But yeah, that was it. It was, play around, deliver something. And then that solution in particular kind of got a lot of traction and still iterations of it in the business today. But it was definitely, that living, breathing proof of concept. But then flipping over to Catherine's point, it was very clear to say, and if you want this to become a thing here, then you need to resource it and start putting something on the table and really putting something around it, because you can max out, I think, because being a lawyer is such a busy job. Obviously, we talk about that being the kind of reason a lot of the time for legal ops. So saying to someone you need a double hat for a long time can be obviously counterproductive. So yeah, I've definitely encouraged GCs or heads of legal that once you see that success, try and harness that, really try and give someone some time and availability or
short-term assignments.
Yeah, short-term assignments are really cool. Partnering with some consultancy or something like that just to buy some time and some sort of support. Yeah, that's definitely a cool way to do it.
Rewarding and noticing and celebrating successes is really important. So everybody in the teams knows that if you do this, we will really try our best to allocate budget and time and against this. So we also, I think you won an award back in the day.
Yeah, and now we have a regular innovation award in our kind of annual awards for Global Legal, which is really cool. We've had some really good wins, and they've been a real range of things, from just sort of new processes or working with a third party or just something that someone's made, chatbots, bits and bobs. Yeah, so it really encourages those people to come to the fore.
And we've also had our enterprise-wide digital upskilling as an entire business. So we've tried, sometimes we've been ahead of the curve, sometimes we've been behind it. So we have a whole digital workplaces team now. And we are banging on their door every single day to say, please release the hound. So we want to go and play with this even more. If you think about the business, in our business, everybody does something on PowerPoint or Excel. Not many other teams use Word like we use Word. So we're really pushing them hard to make sure we have sufficient support to maximize Office 365 as much as we possibly can. And they use us sometimes for pilots because they know we're quite receptive. And also what we do actually has an enterprise-wide effect. If you're looking at employment contracts or you're looking at something that goes through the procurement team, nearly everything we do is not just purely for legal. Yep. It's actually relates to all the other departments. So it has a massive cross-functional business benefit.
Yeah.
I definitely took that as a kind of badge of honor when the IT guys were, you guys are doing all this stuff and you're legal and what are you doing? I was like, yes, that means we're amazingly front of the queue, such a small department, relatively speaking. And them to say, can you come along to our kind of quarterly and share this use case example? I was like, yeah, we can. Yeah, absolutely.
We had a similar experience when I was at Google, where legal became the shining star of leading innovation as a G&A function. And we were doing use case stories and at the all hands for our legal, for our engineering team on, here's a success of how we collaborated with the IT or eng team, and here's how we were successful. But you never would guess that legal would be leading the pack when it came to innovation in the company. So that's really great that you're able to do that.
And the business has changed too, the way we run our tech. So we've gone from having tech business partners, and then whatever happens over the other side of the fence, we had no clue, to now we have a product-led business. And the building you're sat in today, this is our main house of digital around the world. So we've really upskilled an entire business about agile philosophies, sprints. I mean, we're just talking a different language these days. So we now have to run the product area for legal risk and audit, which means the tech colleagues are at our table. So we've had to learn a different way of working as well. In fact, kickoff meeting at the beginning of the year, this year we had it together with the tech team because we said we can't set the agenda for the year unless you're at the table with us. We've never have done that a year ago or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
We just said, here's our one pager and this is what we want this year. Now we do it with them, which that's also been a great learning for us to understand how these things get paid for and working out the magic that happens in the tech IT funding process.
So sort of on that, that's the other question that a lot of people have is, okay, I believe in it, but I can never get funding. I can never get budget because we're legal and we just don't get tech budget. You mentioned Office 365 and sort of the tools that you have at your disposal, and that's great. I think that can take you to a certain point, but at the size and scale of a company you probably get to the point where you go, okay, this is not scalable. We do need budget. We do need purpose-built solutions. And have you had to make sort of pitches for that? Have you been successful? What works? Tips and tricks can you give?
Well, Tracker, for example, we have SAP Ariba, but we said we need Tracker. So it was, why do you need this? We need to have standardized. We need to, and we pushed and pushed and pushed and pushed. And we had a great head of procurement who'd had worked with it before. She's like, yep, she ticked the box and got it through. And we said, we will manage it. Just let us run with it. And now we've got to the phase where they're actually seeing benefits. And we got a comment not so long ago saying, actually, this is better than Ariba. Yes, we know. This is what we wanted it. And the reporting that you can get and the less time it takes on with our shared service teams, people are now starting to see the efficiencies. But we've had to put in the hard legwork to get into that space. So we had to enact we had to have an IP management system. We have our product area is not just legal, it's also protection. So even the visitor badges that comes within our product area. So we have to have a big range of things that are not just legal in order to make this fit within the model that the company wants to work towards. So how many tools do we probably have? Like 20, which are not Office 365 based.
Yeah. And then you mentioned you had to make the pitch that we'll manage it ourselves. Is that pretty important? I know IT is always limited. So sometimes we're always told that's a great tool. You'll have it one day, but we don't have the resources to help you right now. So it can't be on our roadmap from the IT team. But if there were things that we said, our team can manage it because it's low code, no code, or we had someone who actually knew how to code, then as long as they were involved and blessed it, then we could kind of run with it and be finding the same thing. Is that a good argument to?
I think so, and I think getting into the detail of that is really important because there's assumptions are made all the time where the tech team don't always appreciate what a specific legal tech tool is doing and they might overstate it in their mind. So we've worked in the last year, particularly with the team, to get into the detail of what that means. When we say the predominant heavy lifting here is actually the operational lifting in the back end. So just having super users or buying in some consultancy to support, that isn't going to be your time IT. So you don't need to just making them feel comfortable that it's not going to be loads of change requests that go to IT and they go through that process. Most of the modern tools actually have that concept now, right? Where the infrastructure is an IT thing, but actually the back end operations can be done by, some tools can be done actually by the attorneys, but obviously the bigger the tool, the bigger the company, you're probably going to have either your ops team or specialists within your ops team on CLM, obviously, which you know so well. You might have a doc engineer or a CLM admin or those kind of things, or supporting it with external and getting some budget for that as well. But I think you have to drill into it because when you're pitching something, lots of assumptions are made, lots of misunderstandings. We've got to try and speak the same language, and that's what we really try to do.
So we took our tech colleagues, because we see ourselves as one team, we took them to clock. So understand what's happening. When the domain architect came along, fabulous lady called Jeanette, if you're listening, Jeanette, I remember her saying, oh, wow, legal tech is a new fintech. We know. And that massively helped because then they could visualize how that might put the building blocks together in the business. And then we spent a lot of time when we're starting to look at CLM, educating the tech teams and the other supporting teams around it. What is a contract? How does it work? What's the process? Do you understand? Contracts go through many functions of the business in different ways. It's not just one team who does it. It might be sports marketing. It might be real estate. It might be employment. It might be procurement. And all of these have different processes because they're so used to having, invoices get approved, paid, money goes out. It's a standardized process. It doesn't work for CLM. And I think everybody blew their minds as to how diverse these processes are. And then we have the internal issues as to how do we standardize our own content that goes through those. So there's lots of different moving parts when you're looking at some of these bigger projects.
And then who owns it too, right? Who gets to make the decisions on something that is so cross-functional? How does that work for your company? So many folks that I talk to don't even know where to start because they want to fix the problem, but there's so many stakeholders involved. I don't even know if I'm authorized to make suggestions or to fix this.
That's where particularly on technology, that's where the funding process comes into place. So we always have to, I call it street fighting. We go in with our list of things we want, and then we have to make hard trade-offs between what's more important. Is a business partner due diligence tool more important at the moment than this? Or is it something on an e-com? So there's lots of different sort of gates you have to get through, and you just have to go, and it's a bit like Dragon's Den. You have to go in and do your pitch and start street fighting for the money.
I'm working with the enterprise architecture as well. So all these teams that I would never have appreciated a few years ago, Ivan, who's our architect, he's fantastic as well. Just working with him and keeping close contact so he really understands what's going on and why. And again, as part of that community, a totally separate community that we would not have had visibility of without him, he can go away and there are always all these different meetings and explaining, this is something that should sit with legal. This is why I understand the process. I know you're hearing this from HR that maybe it should be them, and bringing people to make sensible decisions that are maybe data driven or make sense from the key processes they're going to go in there. I think unfortunately, you always have to dig into the detail and lay it all out for people and then just keep reiterating, keep walking people through. I think one of the biggest tips we always have is always have a deck that always comes to every meeting to just be like, remember, this is what we're talking about. in one slide, here it is. I don't want to go too heavy on PowerPoint or anything like that, but there's so many meetings where you've put it 20 minutes in and you realize, oh, I don't think half the people here know what we're even talking about. And we're talking about something very specific for legal. I can totally understand why someone in HR or in IT wouldn't have any clue what this means, what does CLM mean, for example. So just having that back to basics and then resetting, reframing, unfortunately, it's the way it goes. But you can see why in a big setting, big corporate, you need to make sure everyone's pulling in the right direction.
Well, I have two very simple rules of survival.
And then I'll share them.
One is assume nothing. And that means ask questions, always go back to basics. Make sure everybody in the room, especially if they're supposed to be having an influence on something, understands what on earth is going on. But it also means stay curious. It means have that open mindset. The second rule of the office is embrace the chaos, because it'll never go in a straight line, particularly not here, the 3 stripes. It's always a little bit chaotic and creative. And if you try and control it too much, you won't survive very long. So you have to learn how to network your way around the place and to get stuff done. So those 2 things, 2 guiding lights.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I always say the most important quality in legal ops is figuring out how to get stuff done, because it is not a straight line, and it is not, no one's going to sit you down and say, here's the process of how to get things done. Every organization's got their who you need to talk to, who are the influencers, and that doesn't always mean they're the leaders. You've got influencers at all levels and all offices, and how do you get...
Now General Counsel came in. I mentioned those 2 survivor rules in his onboarding. A couple of months later, he sent me an email saying, Katherine, I have a 3rd one. I was like, oh gosh, what's this all about? He said, rule number 1, assume nothing. Rule number 2, embrace the chaos. Rule number 3, there are no exceptions to rule number 1 and 2. So you are free to roam the streets of Adidas unaccompanied. Because we keep coming back to it, whether it's in a contractual negotiation, do all your business people know and understand what's going on? I think it's just those rules have really helped us when we've been setting objectives, doing a review. Does everybody know what we're doing? Are we doing the right thing?
Yep.
And taking stuff off the list. We've got 4 sort of levers of efficiency. Do you want to go through them?
My favorite one is stop doing things.
Yeah.
So that's which is interesting, which I think is a real it is difficult for lawyers to do that. Definitely the one, I've mentioned that in loads of different meetings past, and people have really fought me on it sometimes. It's been like, no, but what if I've got it? That mentality. Obviously, automation, radically simplify is another that was a mantra for us for a couple of years, because
coming back again, I think.
It needs to come back. And then, I've got off topic now. Outsource, yeah.
Outsource smartly.
Because again, you don't have to do everything yourself. Plenty of really creative and clever folks out there that are doing really amazing stuff. And I think with the rise of the ASP, alternative legal service providers, there's just stuff out there that just wasn't there 3 or 4 years ago. And there's people with incredible skills in either knowledge of a certain product or just something they've done before.
The knowledge we haven't been allowed to buy.
Yeah.
So we should be leveraging this where we can.
Yeah.
It's really changed the game, the ecosystem. And like certain of those types of alternative service providers existed before, but now the amount of services that you can do, even in legal ops, outsourcing the, like you said, the implementation or the support or the ongoing management of software.
We have that with Tracker. We have somebody, another amazing sub-colleague who helps us manage the legal Tracker tool. Specialist in it, does it all the time, is basically integrated into lots of our processes, and it allows internal team members to then still keep an eye on it, but actually then start to learn to do other things as well. So we're really trying to put the right sort of efforts in the right places.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Switching gears for just 1 second, I'm so curious. We're at the end of April. I don't know when this will actually go live, but what's the sentiment or within Adidas or even across Europe? Or are you feeling a lot of pressure here? Is it curiosity? Is it fear? What are you guys seeing?
All of the above. Let's go back to those 2 rules. It's about assume nothing. I think we need to really work out what is right for us. There's an awful lot of chat about it. There's a lot of excitement about it. And we're all going to lose our jobs. That's everything it says in the newspapers. But if you use it smartly and in the right way, I think it can actually be extremely helpful. We haven't really got to the bottom of our thinking about it. I think there's still a lot of work to be done to figure out what is right.
Are lawyers in your department asking about it, or is it...
AI has always been on top of the list of questions.
Yeah, I think it's definitely crystallized a little bit to that. I think that was the cool thing that OpenAI did by putting that chatbot on the front end of it. They made it so much more understandable. It wasn't conceptual anymore. How do you explain AI? Something that's, again, it's not in the detail, but yeah, that chatbot just really blew it open. And obviously that's a show pony a little bit. The real power is what's under the hood. And I know Ironclad in that space as well. But yeah, for us, I think the thing that's really interesting for me is we're obviously in like the peak of the hype cycle. I'm guessing the peak, maybe it's going to carry on, of just being buried by the news. And if you try and go on Twitter or LinkedIn or something, it's obviously really difficult to navigate top 5 tips for prompting OpenAI and all this kind of stuff. And it's just at that crazy moment. I'm really excited to see those people that are going to come through with a really strong thread and a bit of a roadmap. And even some people are just going to say, we're going to build something that's like at this point now and deliver something and just push it against some real use cases and show you the power of that. We're going to keep doing all the development and fun stuff in the back end, and this product's going to iterate. But I think that's always what we've had it a little bit with blockchain. I don't think this is going to be the same with blockchain. I think this is going to be the real deal. But I think that's where we need to see some products that are delivering.
And we need to get our basics and foundational systems in place, which we can then use AI in it.
That's very true. Yeah. People say, how do I prepare? What should I do now? I think you nailed it, Katherine. AI is not going to be very helpful if you don't have your processes in one place. Someone explained to me, it's the same as asking a human to do something. If everything is everywhere, they're not going to do as good a job if you point them to something. Go, here is everything nicely structured in this folder.
Yeah, if your metadata is rubbish, well, good luck.
A very fast rubbish thing, but I think that's going to be an interesting thing. And obviously the privacy stuff is obviously really interesting. Just really interesting to see how it goes, what are corporates and the general sort of big businesses approach going to be to, are they cool with their data sort of finding its way into the data set for future training? I know that's not always going to happen. There's some tools that don't do that. And I think that, again, that's the iterative side of things is going to be really interesting. But yeah, it's just almost a bit of a bolt out of the blue, really. Just overnight, when it's been so cool. And I guess from the easy wins off it, it obviously does get in everyone's head straight away and makes people start talking about this sort of thing. And that's always a win, right?
That I think is the huge win. Because like you said, there's plenty of other processes and things that we have to put in place. But if there's excitement, if there's interest in at least getting to, or they know what's possible and where we're going with this, not just creating process for process sake, then that dialogue is much more fruitful.
Yeah.
Preparation is key, as always. Fail to plan to fail.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you're seeing different in Europe versus maybe the US in terms of whether it's AI, technology, or even just the roles of legal ops? I know that I'm here this week because we are assembling a group of legal ops people to come together in person today and do a roundtable discussion. Probably wouldn't be possible, 5 years ago?
Probably not. Yeah.
So, and clearly there's growth here. Are you seeing more? Is it something that's been around for a while now, or is it still fairly new?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's definitely growth. There's more roles, more people that want to talk about this stuff. Like you say,
focusing on it as well. I think 5 years ago, maybe people were doing it on the side. A little bit like I was saying, we need to do something on this. But now I think there's more dedicated teams doing it and really putting time aside and headcount aside to drive this, because legal has to be at the speed of business. And you can't do it manually anymore because the business is sped up. Sorry. So if we can't keep it at the same pace or integrated into their processes, legal will always be the no department, and we don't want that.
Yes. Are we seeing roles scoped correctly? Do people understand what the impact of the role can be?
I don't think there is one defined role. Even if I just look at our own team, the beauty of our team is we're completely diverse. Alex comes from a legal background, but somebody who's come from the tech team, somebody who's come from finance, somebody who's come from business administration, somebody else who's come from a legal background and business administration. And then I still have my other world, which is still the legal day job as well. So that diversity of thought has really, I think, has taken us to a whole new level, and a new level of understanding of different perspectives of the business as well, that we may not have thought about had it just been pure lawyers who'd become legal operations people, right?
Yeah. I would say that makes sense for kind of at the interview stage. I think the interview for legal ops roles need to be definitely more conversational, because you need to extract what it is. Saying, we need to come in to do legal ops, and someone will turn in a CV for that, and you'll be like, well, kind of, but I definitely think it's something you want to talk to them to say, like, no, all the obvious stuff, but like, is this kind of what they are expecting as well? Because it's going to be a flash in the pan. Otherwise, people are like, oh, this is really, you're really hiring a legal engineer or a doc engineer for this. And actually my background is more in this. And I said I could do legal ops, but I think that's the cool thing about legal ops is that it's such a broad church. There's so many different avenues in. And as you said, in Europe, there are some centers. Initially, you might say, oh, everything was coming out of the States, and then a lot of stuff out of the UK. Maybe Australia was leading for a little while with all that stuff. But now, India's got some, all the kind of outsourcing stuff is really cool from there. But things legal design, that's got a route into legal ops a lot of the time. And got people in Helsinki and all the sort of Nordics countries that are super hot on that. A lot of people in Spain doing stuff, robotics and things. I think that's the really amazing part of it is that, everyone's got a route to this central thing called legal ops, but it's still really movable and intangible, and actually it's more what you're trying to achieve at the end of the day. Yeah. So I think that it's not easy if you're trying to hire and you don't know too much about it, but and you might
like an elephant is quite difficult to describe until you see it, and you know exactly what it is.
Yeah, that's it.
Because I think it's actually just the personality of somebody who's coming in, depending on where you are in your journey. We just want people who are open-minded, who can help our patients and help bring people on the journey. I'm probably the most impatient person in the team. But not everybody goes at the same pace as everybody else. So we need people who can help, support and encourage to bring people on that journey. And depending on what you need, then you try and find the person to go around that particular need you have in the team, which is why in this team it's so important that we all have a little taste of what everybody else is doing, because we might need to adapt and change. If somebody goes off on maternity leave or leaves or goes to another department, it's also a really great career progression. A lot of our junior lawyers who are coming into Adidas now want to do something with technology. They're all grappling to do, I don't want just to churn contracts or just do X, Y, or Z every day. I want to be involved in that, in the technology. It's actually part of their sort of education now. It's very different.
Yeah, it's really interesting. And the scope of the role, as well as the background that people are hiring for, I have found the catalyst for a lot of companies saying, I think it's time for us to hire someone in whatever you want to call it, legal ops, is the digital transformation, is the need for technology and to modernize the department. Whereas in the past, you guys have been around 5 or 6 years. And I think 5, 6 years and earlier, a lot of it was budget and financial management and trying to tighten the belt and how can we do things more efficiently. Now it's all tech, tooling, AI. How do we modernize our department? And so you're getting less lawyers. You're starting to get diversity of project managers, data analysts, tech specialists, you name it.
Which is why that engagement part of 3 pillars of solutions is so important. We need to change the culture. We need to help form the culture of the wider legal community to make sure that we're upskilling people.
Yeah.
Like we are providing the right practical materials, the right knowledge bases to make sure they take them on their journey. It's all intertwined. You have to have those 3 things together.
Yeah. I think it's interesting now for companies that are large like yours, because we are hearing all these lawyers saying with all the AI, I want my job to be tech. I want to do legal tech. I want some of it, because they see where the future is going. And I think that's very smart. And I don't want to be ageist, but the young people actually do know how to code and actually do know how to do stuff with tech a lot more than like I do. As a large company, we were always worried about saying, now everyone's going to go rogue. Now everyone's going to start building stuff and using tech and tooling and
embrace the chaos. You've got to, you can't control it. You have to just listen and understand where it needs to go and what people want to do. And our job as leaders is actually just to open the door. You have to see just sort of sense the room. What do we need?
Yeah, I do like that about the no-code, low-code stuff, because that's, for me, like the sandbox. I think you have to create spaces for people to do this stuff. And like you say, when you're working in a large organization, you can't obviously let everybody completely off the grid because you have a core business purpose that you're trying to deliver and a code of conduct and all the other good stuff. And but like you say, the kind of the flip side of that is what happens if you don't let people do stuff, they leave. So that kind of classic, I don't know what example, we're going to spend money training people, but what if they leave tomorrow? And what if they stay? I think that's the classic here, isn't it? You need a healthy balance. And I think we're definitely at that stage where we want people to lean more towards the kind of just going a little bit crazy and doing something in that right environment and just saying, if you come to us and say, I want to completely rip this up, I've got a vision for it and this is what I think we could do, we can support you to say, okay, let's do that in an environment where that's okay. And then it could be implemented, or it could be we learn a few things from it, or anything's possible. It's just that impossible is nothing. But that's it. And I think that's the reality, that you have to do that kind of cutting edge, letting people loose, but also then just constantly coming back, iterating, bringing it in.
Continuous improvement philosophy.
That's all. Dev, test, production. I think it's such a cool thing in IT. You need that in your ops and legal function, because it doesn't have to be tech.
Let's just apply the same principles to our work products. If you're doing contract templates, you're developing it, you're testing it, you're learning from it, you go back and change the templates the next year. The same principles you can apply for how you do tech development to how you do like our own work products. And also, you can only do this by learning and failing.
Yeah.
And failing is a good thing. Failing is good because you learn from it. You learn from it, but you fail fast and you learn faster. And if people have the experience of that, it's not always about perfection. We want people to dot the I's and cross the T's. That's a very important skill within legal. But we want people to have that creative mindset, to collaborate with others, to understand where they're going, and to then adapt and change, because you can't stand still.
Exactly.
And if they do leave, they might come back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and Alex, you've now done solutions and all this for a long time, and specifically in legal tech, which is the hot thing right now. Hence, you've become, a legal influencer?
Oh, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe. Well, I was speaking to you, so I can't really claim that, but...
Was that just by accident? Or did you try to build up?
Yeah. I think initially it was just by accident because I was using LinkedIn, probably more as my platform to just ask questions initially. I think I remember some of my first questions were back in when people were talking about blockchain. I was, who's doing smart contracts? What's going on? And there's some really smart people out there who are really happy to share, which is amazing. That's probably the cool things about social media, or the right channels of social media. Some not so great. And then, it became more of a conscious thing, which was probably less about my day-to-day Adidas work. But the cool thing about it was meeting new people, someone with a new idea, and then we can mention that in the team meeting, or we're always talking. But yeah, from my point of view, I definitely lean into that sort of rising tides lifts all the boat. And I definitely see the upside of it. So yeah, I guess being in a sort of semi-privileged position of, because I'm not a vendor or I'm not trying to sell my wares, I've got a little bit of a space to just say, I can put that out there. Someone can happily DM me and ask me a question. And it's crazy. People from FTSE companies where you're a really massive company, you're asking me a really basic question, but okay, that's what you needed. You needed someone to put something out there. And I just say, you want to speak to these 3 people, or this is what we're doing. Start looking at it. I've just been that sort of conduit, I think, is where I see my role. But I'm definitely more of a sort of introverted person. So I have had a few instances of people saying, you're the guy from such a thing. And I'm already like, oh no, I'm going to have to cancel. I'm going to have to stop because I can't take the embarrassment of going into a law firm and someone says, oh, you're that guy. But no, it has been really super fun. And yeah, getting a small little bit of dopamine off a few thousand or something like that. It's, it's been cool. Please follow me if you're listening to this. I'm thirsty for the likes now. I'm addicted.
It's incredibly useful. When we are brainstorming ideas, we're like, oh gosh, somebody else must have done this. Alex, find out in the network. Yeah, somebody else has done it. This cannot be rocket science.
Yeah.
Thank you both so much for your time and for doing this. This was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Out of both of wisdom, and we'll talk soon.
Yeah. Amazing. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.